lot for the really kind introduction, Chris, and I'm really excited to be here. If people dialing in are half as excited as I am tonight, we're going to spend a really great evening together. So we're here to discuss about growth models, particularly, and about the missing piece that I frequently seen in the growth model of a lot of companies out there. So a little about myself and what qualifies me to talk about growth tonight. So I'm currently leading all things product growth at Mondly by Pearson, which is the world's leading education company. I've spent my entire career building a leading marketing and growth teams for companies such as Uber, Revolut, Bitpanda. And prior to engaging in the hypergrowth journey, I had a marketing agency working with tech startups and an NGO doing entrepreneurship programs for the youth. So I'm an entrepreneur at heart. I've been and I'll always be a builder. I'm a product marketer, and I'm also the mom of a 5 years old toddler, which takes all my time and energy when I'm not working. But this is not the topic of tonight's conversation. Tonight, we are going to talk about growth. So I'm going to start by asking a question. How do businesses grow? Because we're all chasing unicorns out there. And we all want to see that hypergrowth, the hockey stick growth curve. We're desperately chasing it, and we're really focused on growing all day, growing all night. And we already have a poll that Chris has kindly launched. So I'm really interested to hear, in your opinion, how do the best businesses grow? How do we actually manage to achieve growth and that hyper growth that we're scaling about? And we're gathering answers. So I see that a lot of people agree that it's product and marketing. Very few people say that it's other. I'm happy to see that the answers are skewed towards product. That means that we have more product people in the audience than marketing people in the audience, which is something that frequently happens. Good. So let's see, how do businesses grow? And truth is, there's a very, very simple question to that. And that's not product marketing or both or other. All businesses grow by doing one simple thing. And that's actually solving real problems for their customers, as weird as this might sound. And if we look at customers, what do customers want? And it's four things that are fairly simple that all customers, business customers, consumers want from a business. And that's things that are simple. So they want products that are easy to understand at the tap of a button. They prioritize, particularly in the digital world, we see a big prioritization and big focus on convenience. Then they want things to be fast. No one wants to wait in line. I'm still to meet the first person that told me that they're eager and excited that they've waited in line for something. So customers need to get what they need when they need it to solve their problem. They like human products. So they like products that speak to them in a language that they can relate to and that they can understand. And here is the importance of speaking humanese. I call it humanese instead of using like really fancy terms. And you see here and there, if you look at products, you see a language, you read a sentence, you read it second time, third time. First time you think maybe it's me here. You read it the second time, you read it the fourth time, and then you realize it's just fluff words over there and it doesn't mean anything. And this is something that customers don't actually like. And last but not least, it's about affordable. And by affordable, I don't mean cheap, because there are products that are the most expensive in their range as opposed to their competitors, and they are still affordable because they offer the best value for money. And these are things that are fairly simple and universal, and all of us as customers want the same thing. And you're going to see that I kind of particularly like GIFs. It's not rocket science. So nothing that I've said so far, it's not rocket science. The reason we're not actually following that is that we're not fans of hearing what people actually have to say. And normally, and this is not only about founders, it's about ourselves as well. Because, hey, we're all owners and we love our product and our work becomes our baby. And then we ignore what customers say and we get to a point where we're biased towards our self-reference. So we use what is called in marketing the self-reference criterion, and we say, hey, if I like this, everyone will like this, and we implement and we take our product and marketing decisions based on that, and that's the recipe for disaster. So back to how customers grow. When we talk growth, we normally talk about acquisition channels. And again, this is not rocket science, and I'm going to go really quickly through that. There are 3 types of acquisition channels that we can leverage when growing a company. And first, it's the own channels and the channels that we normally activate in the beginning. It's the channels that we own. We incur no additional costs by leveraging them. And it's everything related to our website, our blog, our social media, emails, push notification, in-app notification, you name it. You own a channel, that's an own channel. Then it's the earned channels. And the earned channels are the channels that don't belong to you, but you still don't pay for them. You earn your exposure on them. And here we talk about user-generated content, about company-generated content that you leverage. Again, here we need to discuss about the payment per se, because the company-generated content actually costs, because you pay for the persons that are creating that content. So it's not free. It's about the events where you're invited to get to take the stage. It's about earned media. It's about word of mouth. You don't actively pay for that, unless it's the channels that you pay and that you leverage by paying, from influencers to affiliates, performance marketing, above the line advertising, you name it. You pay for it, it's a paid channel. Not rocket science either. Now, we're going through a transition, and this is a shameless steal, because I've stole this slide from Brian and Andrew, who are the creators of the Growth Series Reforge course. That was my first touch point with Reforge, and it's one of the best courses out there on the market. So if you're on Reforge, and if you want to learn more about growth, start with the Growth Series, and you're going to get everything. Back to my narrative. It's about the transition from linear channels to loops. So what are loops, you might ask? So an acquisition loop is actually a system where every cohort of users that you acquire through various actions that you take leads to another cohort of users. So instead of being linear, you acquire some customers, and this is the funnel. It's a loop where the customers you've acquired, the cohort of customers you've acquired, leads to another cohort. And this is a really powerful. Companies that grow exponentially manage to activate those acquisition loops. And there are a couple of categories, again, stolen from Brian Balfour and Andrew Chen, the creators of Growth Series course. This is how they categorize loops, and there are 4 major categories of loops that you can activate for your business to grow. And those are viral loops, content loops, paid loops, and sales loops. I'm not going to deep dive into this. You're going to find, again, hours of content in the Growth Series course. I put this here because it relates to how we move forward. So back to how companies grow, and we're going to talk top of the funnel. I'm going to tie the acquisition channels and the acquisition loops with the stages of company growth. So we hear a lot about, and we've seen in the initial poll, there's an entire narrative in the tech world. Is it product-driven growth or is it marketing-driven growth? In the world of B2B, there's a big chasm created between the teams in a company, between the advocates of PLG, who are like, let's go all Elena Verna on this one, and let's do PLG here, and we know how to do it, versus the sales advocates of in a company. And truth is, this is not a question of either or. It's a question of and then some. So the first thing any company should do, and the foundation of sustainable and long-term growth, is product-driven growth. So at this stage, and you might say, hey, but my company, I'm here, but my company is past the early stages, so this is not interesting to me. I'm not going to do product-driven growth. That's wrong. You do product-driven growth throughout the company lifecycle. You do product-driven growth because your product evolves, your audience evolves, you launch new products and features. And at this point, in the product-driven growth stage, you focus on the product and you focus on monetization, how you can actually drive revenues with the product. Because if it's a nice product, but people don't want to pay for it, you don't have a business. That's a hobby, which is really nice. It's nice to have a hobby, but it's not the topic of this conversation because we all want to build businesses. In the product-driven growth stage, the channels that you activate and the loops, the linear channels and the channels that you activate are owned channels. So at this point, you're not focusing on seeing whether you can do a TV campaign. You're looking into direct customer communication, into lifecycle journeys, into creating wait lists for your new features and products in order to test customer interest. So you're growing with very, very little money and very little investment upfront, because the key objective of the product-driven growth stage, and the key thing that you want at this stage is to make it work and to start to kickstart, to get the wheel spinning. And to get the ball running and the wheel spinning, again, what you need to do is listen. And I'm a big fan of House MD as well. It's a masterclass. The series is a masterclass in problem solving. And in order to problem solve, you need to listen to the verbal cues, what your customers say, but also to the non-verbal cues, what your customers do. Because what you want to achieve, again, in the product-driven growth stage is to create a feedback loop that stays with you throughout the customer, the product lifecycle and the company's lifetime. It, of course, starts with product. So if you hear people arguing that product versus marketing, it's a chicken or the egg question, it's not. It starts with product, and product is the foundation. It's product that actually builds the product, ships it, and refines the customer experience. But in order for the product to get to market, you're getting to marketing and GTM. And the GTM takes the product and the new features to customers and make sure that you actually have customers using the product that you've built. If you're a firm believer into the build it and they will come mindset, that's not available. And that's not available in the product-driven growth stage either. It just doesn't work like that. And if some companies got really lucky in the early stages when the environment was not as crowded as it is today, build it and they will come definitely doesn't work today. And once your marketing team took your product to market, marketing and sales team, it reaches the customers. And these are the most important piece of your feedback loop, because you need to get the product, get the feedback from them and feed it back into the product team to reinforce the loop. This is the outcome of the product-driven, this should be the outcome of the product-driven growth stage to actually make sure that the feedback loop is strong and it's working. What not to do in the product-driven growth stage and what a lot of companies do. So basically, we put there a wait list, we boost a couple of posts on Meta or else. We promote it to our mother and our mother's friends and our friends' friends. And then we're not growing. We have 5 people on the wait list. 4 of them are related to us. So what should we do? Let's start throwing money out the window. Let's do a bit of marketing, maybe a radio ad. That's bad at this stage, because what you're going to do is to get an unsustainable product, an unsustainable feature, an unsustainable business model to the market, and you're going to literally throw money out the window like this adorable toddler is doing in this GIF. Most companies at this stage switch really fast. The worst model I've seen is where product-driven growth stage is not growing. Your growth is simply not picking up. You don't see a higher number of customers joining your company year over year. So what you do, you jump into the marketing-driven growth stage where you start leveraging paid channels. Maybe and there are so many examples of products that did that, and then they close doors afterwards. They start with influencers are very fancy these days. So, okay, maybe we need to get some influencers paid in order to speak about our product and get some traction around our product. And we do that, and we move things temporarily, but things still don't move. That's the worst example. The best case example in most situations is we figured out product-driven growth. We grow week over week sustainably. Users are interested in our product, are paying for our product, and then we switch to marketing-driven growth. And in the marketing-driven growth, as his name says, we are focused on leveraging marketing to drive sustainable growth. So key thing here is to be authentic and trustworthy. Back to what customers don't like, and I'm not sure, we didn't talk about the narrative to Chris and to what extent I'm allowed to say this. No customer ever liked bullshit. So be authentic and be trustworthy in your marketing communication whenever you do it. And at this stage, you're leveraging the paid channels. So influencer endorsements. I don't like the word influencer. I like to use KOL, which stands for key opinion leaders, because it's a world of difference between using the key opinion leaders for your product versus the mega influencer that everyone heard about, but don't actually bring traction to your product. You use performance marketing, you use outbound marketing, you use above the line campaigns, you use incentivized referrals, and still growth doesn't pick up. So you're growing. You've been growing in the product driven growth stage as well because you've narrowed it, but you don't see that hockey stick growth curve. And you see that you don't have a brand. Basically, what you don't have a brand translates in this equation is that customers don't actually have a relationship with your product. The relationship is purely functional and purely transactional. And then sometimes a really wise marketer comes and says, we need to invest 10 million in an above the line campaign. We need TV. TV is going to solve this problem. And when we do this, we resort back to the toddler throwing money out the window. The reason for that is that there's a missing piece in the marketing, in the growth model of companies. And I've seen this time and again. And if you look at the hyper growth companies that you admire, I've yet to find one that lacks this missing piece. Most of the companies that have reached hyper growth and the hockey stick growth curves do have that missing piece. And that missing piece is actually putting the customer back where it belongs, front and center of your growth strategy. And in this point, once you've figured out product-driven growth, you resort to community-driven growth. That's about building a community. That's about using your customers. It's about building a strong community around your product and leveraging. And it's not about what it's not about. It's not about spending a lot of money. It's about leveraging the channels that you can earn. It's about organizing community events. It's about doing thought leadership and positioning your key executives as thought leaders in the industry. It's about inbound rather than outbound marketing. It's about inbound sales rather than outbound sales. It's about media communication, consumer communication, media communication. It's about strategic partnerships that they do require an investment, but that investment is not primarily in terms of money, but it's in terms of times and dedication. That's why I see a lot of companies I'm working with, I see that they are trying to take a shortcut here. And they are like, yeah, but this takes a lot of time to build. So I'm just going to jump to marketing-driven growth, or I'm going to do them both in the same time. It doesn't work. You need to go the extra mile if you want to reap the rewards. Something that holds true in business and in life as well is that we all have role models. We want to get where they got, but we don't want to go through the work that they got to get there most of the time. And we need to acknowledge a very simple, accurate, although painful saying that where there's no pain, there's no gain. And by pain here, I mean investment of time and effort and resources and the trial and error process to get the community-driven growth into your growth model, and to get community-driven or customer-driven motion into motion. And this applies initially when I've talked about this, the question was, yeah, but this applies to B2C. It doesn't apply to B2B companies. It applies equally to both. And we're getting back to loops versus linear things. And we're going away from funnels and going to loops. So in B2C companies, it's what I call the trifecta of hypergrowth. So the trifecta of hypergrowth in B2C is product-driven, community-driven, and marketing-driven. And community-driven growth has a massive impact in terms of word of mouth and in terms of K factor. The number of K factor, for those of you that are not familiar, is the number of customers every one of your customers is bringing back to your business. So the viral coefficient. In simple terms, for B2B companies, it's about building a trifecta between product, marketing, and sales, where sales is focused on going inbound first and a relationship first and outbound later, once you've built a strong community of advocates and powerful advocates around your product, and you've built a really strong relationship with your clients. So what happens if you forget to put the customer back? You're going to see low product stickiness. That means that, yes, you can pay to acquire customers, and it's going to get more and more expensive as you scale, but you're going to see very low activation rates and high churn because customers are there and they realize they don't actually want to be there. You're going to see little organic growth, and you're going to have to pay for every single customer. And that's going to actually explode your blended cost of acquisition. So if you look at the cost of acquisition, you're going to keep the cost of acquisition of paid ideally under control in order to grow sustainably. But if you don't have a powerful organic motion in place, and if you're not acquiring customers organically, you're going to acquire customers really expensive for your business. And users are not gonna, your conversion to paid is going to be so much lower than the conversion to paid of customers that are actually having a community around the product. And if users don't pay, that's gonna actually threaten your overall business sustainability. When do you know you nailed it? So first, you see high product stickiness. You nailed it, and you're there, and you can start investing massively and diversifying acquisition channels when your product actually grows organically, week over week, and it grows beyond top of the funnel. That means that the customers you actually acquire convert to active customers and further spread the word to other customers. And by further spread the word, I don't mean give $50 to a customer to tell the world about you, and they will, because they will if you give them $50. But how many customers are actually spreading the word about your product if you don't pay them those $50? And that's measured in willingness to talk. So basically, you look at not only that users are active and engaged, but they are talking with other customers, and they are also willing to get involved and give you feedback. They are requesting new features for your product. They invite others unincentivized. And last but not least, the willingness to pay, which is, I really like when startups are measuring willingness to pay. There's only one way to measure willingness to pay, and that's paying, getting your card out, putting the credit card information there. And back in the day, yeah, I'm that old, it was called voting with your wallet. We don't vote with a wallet anymore because we don't use wallets except our digital wallets. But you still need to see customers actually paying. And at that point, you need to hire, and you actually afford to hire, because the need to hire is going to be consistent throughout your product life cycle. But once customers pay for your product, you are actually going to afford those hires. So I'm going to briefly go through a model of how this looks in practice and how we've grown at Revolut using this model. So in the product-driven growth stage with Revolut, we first nailed the positioning. So for those of you who are not familiar with it, Revolut is the leading fintech in Europe. And back when we launched Revolut as a travel card. It was basically an antibiotic. Here it goes to the literature of your product being an antibiotic or a vitamin, because no one forgets to take their antibiotic, but we might forget taking our vitamins. So it was an antibiotic for frequent travelers, and we went with a narrative of spending money anywhere at the real exchange rate, a better exchange rate that the banks were offering. We created a working feedback loop between a product, go-to-market, and our early customers who were really, really engaged. And we launched revenue-generating features. So before scaling, before investing money, we launched subscriptions. We launched the business product. We launched different features that were revenue generated in order to ensure the sustainability of our business, because we wanted to make sure that we have the money to further invest in growth versus throwing out the window. The throwing money out the window particularly applies when you're talking investor money, because you have those really nice models and those really nice forecasts that never happen unless you prioritize sustainability first. This is how Revolut was looking in early 2018. So we basically had 5 teams distributed in regions. And then we went to the community-driven growth stage, where we started building a strong community around the product. We focused on building relationships with product evangelists and early adopters during events that we called Rev Rallies, and we organized in key cities around Europe. We did a lot of media and consumer communication, thought leadership, events, awards. Our country managers, our marketing managers were instrumental in actually positioning Revolut and building a brand. And we focused on localization. So this is one of the key initiatives that I led at Revolut. It was called Growth Machine. I was leading global growth for Revolut, and we focused on building local teams. We ended up with having 15 teams in markets across Europe, the US, and APAC in order to localize the product and in order to build communities and drive adoption at the local level, build a trust brand. This is how it looked like 2 years later. So only 2 years later, and this is just the European map. And that's the very old logo of Revolut from my days back at Revolut. So we've hired aggressively and we've expanded because by that point we saw product-driven growth working, we saw community-driven growth working, and we knew that it's time to scale. And when time came to scale, we started leveraging paid channels with a test and learn approach always. So my advice, and I might be less risk averse here, but my advice is always test and learn before leveraging channels. Don't go all in. And I don't like, in terms of marketing strategy, I don't like to put all my eggs in one basket. I always leverage multiple channels, and I always test and learn in order to see that that particular channel is working for a business. And there is more to that that I haven't talked about so far. So on one end is the people. So for any growth model to work, you need to have the right people on board. And in hiring the right people, I always look at two things. So first, it's skill set, it's competence. And in terms of competence, at Revolut, we had a really strong hiring process where we assessed people. We looked at each role and we said, hey, these are the hard skills required for the roles. And we had the best people that were acing those skills, interviewing the new hires for that skill set. And then it's aptitude, and it's also attitude, which is really important. And for me, there are a couple of things that are really important when hiring people, and I kept that with me throughout my career journey, and I'm going to go with it. You want people that are results driven, that are biased to action, that are problem solvers. So you want people that thrive when solving the hard challenges for the business, that are resilient through change, because in tech you're going to see a lot of change, and that have a growth mindset, that never settle. One of Revolut's value that I highly resonated with was never settle. And it's about knowing that even if you deliver the best possible work today, tomorrow you're going to be able to do even better than that. So it's about aiming high, it's about always learning, and it's something that you have or you don't have. And this is how I've brought the people on board to make all this work. And then it's about processes. And if you look, depending on the type of company you're in, when you're hearing process, you might say, oh, that's boring, that's bureaucracy, we all hate process. But it's not true. You need to have process in order to be able to scale. And most companies and most products and product pods and product squads get to the point where they are too small to be managed like big companies/squads, too big to be managed like small companies. And then in order for them to scale and transition to the next stage, you need to have the right governance structure in place and hence the right processes. And here we focused, and I always focus on building processes that scale. So you go lean, you're never, I was having a conversation with someone in my team earlier today. You never focus on the end goal and on building a process that's perfect. The process is never going to be perfect. You're iterating and going lean and starting from a minimum viable process that scales with you and the company. You need processes that are easily replicable, particularly when you're growing global. You need processes that enable for clear ownership and accountability, because if you don't have ownership and accountability, you're not going to have results. And you need to eliminate red tape. So I call this the internal game of football. And I've seen it at work sometimes, where people, when they get the ball gets to them, they are really focused on finding another player and switching the ball to another player. And the ball in this example is the responsibility. You want to make sure that the way you set up the process doesn't allow for that. And you eliminate the red tape, and you eliminate the people that are doing minimum viable work and just want to get rid of the responsibility. And if you do all that on top of community-driven growth, so as I said, community is central in the hypergrowth equation. And for me, if you're chasing the holy grail of hypergrowth, because we all are with our products, we secretly all are, even if we don't admit it. The hypergrowth is an equation. I believe in the power of math, and I'm trying to apply math to everything. And it's about product-driven growth plus community-driven growth, which is central, plus marketing-driven growth. And in order to get to scale, in order to get to exponential growth, it's about people and processes as a catalyst. So I'm going to end up and open to questions with a quote that I really love from the founder of Y Combinator. It equally applies to companies and products. And Paul Graham says that raising money is the second hardest part of starting a startup. So is raising money internally for your product. The hardest part is actually making something people want. And most startups that die, and I would say most products that die because they didn't do that. They don't die because they ran out of money. Thank you for listening to me so far, and I'd be delighted to answer your questions.
Awesome. Irina, there's been a ton of networking and excitement about the talk happening in the chat. I'll go ahead and read out some of the questions we have. Stephen Zhu asks, for B2B companies, why would you recommend inbound first and outbound later? Why not inbound first?
So I think it's about relationship building, and I'm going to reply. Of course, it depends. So B2B companies, you can't classify all B2B companies as B2B companies holistically, because you have different types of B2B companies. So if your client is a small and medium business, you're targeting SMBs, your growth model is going to be so much more similar to the direct to consumer growth model than to a pure business model. Then if your client is enterprise, that's a whole different beast. And then you have the third type of B2B companies, and that's institutional and government. So that's the companies that are selling to institution and governments. And again, it's a whole other beast. What I recommend is building the relationship first before resorting to outbound sales, particularly in today's world. And of course, it depends a lot on who is your target audience. But when's the last time you actually responded to an email that was randomly sent in your inbox? When's the last time someone called you and you were really excited of having this call and hearing their sales speech? For me, my answer is no. No, I can't remember a time when I did that, because I'm literally closing every type of sales phone that phone call that I receive. But then there's the how do I choose products and services? If someone that you like and trust recommends you a product and service, you're going to have that sales conversation, because it's going to be an introduction. So what I'm advocating for, build that network first, build that relationship first, find those introductions before resorting to spamming customers and wondering what went wrong. And then you can also, once you have case studies and best practices to show, once you have a strong relationship, you can also do outbound, because people are going to know about you. You're not going to be no one.
Love that. Warm intros versus cold spam. Cameron asks, how do you move from a non-sticky product to a sticky product if users aren't responsive in providing feedback? You can only learn so much from quantitative data.
That's a really, really good question. So I think sometimes you just need to call it a day and acknowledge that you don't have a product, because a lot of the products out there are really, really, really bad products that are not solving a customer problem. So if your product is, if you see that your product is not sticky and customers are not staying with the product, yes, you can't learn from quantitative data, but you can learn from the qualitative. So I'm a big fan of Brian Chesky from Airbnb, and he was always talking about the opportunities that you have in the early stages of your product to actually do things that don't scale. And this is the time, this is again an advice that Brian Chesky got from Y Combinator, from Paul Graham when he was with Airbnb in Y Combinator. So do things that don't scale. Actually talk with those customers one-on-one. Pick up the phone and call those customers. Ideally, advise them about that before, or ask them to express interest in order to not annoy them even more. From my experience, non-sticky products are products that either don't have product market fit, or haven't reached yet product market fit, or have lost product market fit. Because again, if we look at metrics, we say, hey, we've got product market fit, we've nailed it, let's move on. But the problem is that as you scale, you might not have product market fit in different other markets. So you need to go with a different positioning and with a different, slightly different product in other geographies. Or due to how the market evolves and how innovation happens, you're losing the product market fit that you had. So my advice here, if your product is non-sticky, don't throw money out the window. Don't throw money at the customers hoping it would stick, because it's not going to work. But get back to the drawing table and understand why your product is not sticking. And in order to get the answer, you can only get the answer to that question if you talk to your customers, and not quantitative. Like if you're a B2B product and you have 5 companies to talk to, just talk with those 5, because there's no quantitative insight to get there.
Irina, I have a follow-up there. Say this person is pursuing this qualitative feedback from their customers and they're not able to get a response when they reach out. Do you recommend incentivizing feedback, or how do you recommend getting feedback from an unresponsive customer base?
So what I found is that customers are reach out to them, but don't spam them and don't annoy them. Copywriting is key here. So at Revolut, we had at some point a brilliant director of comms who was writing really, really good and appealing copy. And if you're writing a nice email, even if your product is bad at that point and you disappointed the customer is going to engage. Don't be aggressive, like I don't know, there are a lot of cold messages that I receive along the line. Shall we schedule a call today or tomorrow? And I'm literally like, every time I see that, I'm so close of hitting reply and saying no thank you, just because of how annoying the narrative is there. So just be be genuine and say, hey, we actually need help, we think we messed up. Can you dedicate 15 minutes of your time for us to have a conversation and to understand where we messed up and where we fell short of meeting your expectation? So I always advise, and there's also the narrative when you start going to community-driven growth, and particularly in bigger organization, because I assume that some of you are in bigger organization, get away from the fluff, be genuine to your customers. Speak out the truth to your customers, and customers are actually going to empathize with you just because you're honest with them. So engage in copy and speak out the truth, and you're going to get there. And if you don't get there and customers really don't care and you piss them off really, really badly, and you try out a lot of things, you look at the one other thing, look at the competitors, look at where's the friction in your onboarding funnel, in your product. Does the product solve the intended problem it's supposed to solve? Do you have the right positioning? If everything is right and it's still not working, you can call it a day. I mean, a lot of products fail, and I think a lot of products fail way too late, and we invest. I see this in the corporate environment a lot, optimizing for sunk costs. Yeah, but we've already invested so much time and energy in this product, so we're going to make it work, or we're going to die trying. And I'm all for that. We did that at Uber a couple of times, and it feels great to feel that all your energy is there. But at some point, you realize that you already died trying, and you can call it a day and switch to another product.
Love it. Our next question is from Ben Thompson. Ben, in response to the Revolut case study, asks, do you remember how the customer lifetime value evolved in the growth period for Revolut between 2018 and 2020?
So the customer lifetime value was increasing, was really, really steep. I can't mention actual numbers because it's under it's confidential information. We were always really focused in customer lifetime value, because with Revolut we were always launching new revenue driving features. So initially when we launched the product, it was a free product and we added the premium subscription tier, but at Revolut, we were also monetizing the free customers. So they were using Revolut for free, but we were gaining money from the interchange. And we were closely monitoring, so the LTV of our free customers, the LTV of our premium customers, and the blended LTV holistically. And we were always very business oriented in the sense that, hey, we need to do a product that's, and from my experience, I'm not sure how many of you use Revolut, but Revolut is Apple, is the Apple of fintech, and the product experience is as sleek as nice as that of Apple. So we were focused on providing that magical experience to the customers in terms of product, but in the same time having a business mindset and always asking how we can increase the LTV of our customers. So for example, during my time there, we launched Metal, which was another subscription tier, which with other benefits. We launched travel insurance, who was back then, I'm not sure how it is right now. I'm still a Metal customer and I still love my Revolut product. But back then we were also selling travel insurance to free customers. So okay, you're not a Metal customer or a premium customer, but you can you buy travel insurance from us. And we also had a really nice thing. So if you wanted to get rid of the stress, you could activate automatic travel insurance. So basically, when you went out of your country, travel insurance was automatically activated with a pay per day, such that you don't find yourself in the position where, hey, I went abroad and I forgot about the travel insurance and now I can't do anything about it. And that increased the LTV of the product, and for free users as well. So as I said, in fintech, if some of you are in fintech, you might know about it. You monetize based on the interchange. So basically, you get a commission out of every payment that customers are doing with your card. So in order to increase the LTV, we needed to focus on switching Revolut from being a travel card, we launched with the positioning of the travel card, to being your day-to-day financial partner, to getting people into daily use. And we focused on building the product and building products and features around daily usage, such that we convert customers from frequent usage. We get customers from travel usage to daily usage in order to gain more revenues.
Awesome, super thorough. Last question we have time for is from Kariba. How can you best measure impact of PLG and differentiate what's product driven versus the result of sales and marketing?
That's a really good question. I think if you talk attribution, you're never going to see 100% accurate attribution. So I think in general, you're looking at the channels. So everything that's done on own channels, it's PLG, it's product driven. Everything that's leveraging the pay channels, it's marketing driven and it's attributable to marketing. If you look at in B2B, like if you look at qualified leads, it's fairly easy to see where those leads are coming from. And if they are coming from marketing, in the end, the final sales you can attribute to marketing. But again, you can't do this 100% separation, because PLG is the foundation of everything. And if you do PLG right, you're going to get marketing to get better results. What I'm advocating for teams actually working together in the trifecta. So I always see teams fighting. That came from PLG. No, that came from marketing. No, that actually came from sales because I closed the deal. Or that's my community work. That's my event that I've done. There I converted so many customers. Truth is, we need to, so I'm a simple girl, I follow the money. The key metric that I look at is always overall revenue for the company. And I advocate here of teams actually looking at how we can work together to generate more revenue for the customers than, hey, this is my customer versus this is your customers. And this comes from the way you set your KPIs and from the relationship you're having with people that you work with. In the end, what I want everyone to remember is that, hey, we're in a boat, all of us together, rowing in the same direction. It's not product versus growth. It's not product versus community. It's not either or. It's and we should all remember this.
Awesome. All right, that's it. That's all we have time for today, everybody. Like I said, super exciting to see everybody networking in the chat. If you do become a Reforge member, there's a Slack community where you guys can talk organically, which is pretty cool. Wanted to thank Irina so much for her time and her expertise. It's amazing how much knowledge you were able to condense into such a short time. And thanks again, everybody, for dedicating your time today. Irina, any last words of wisdom before we log off?
So I think I haven't prepared for that. So I think be authentic, be true to yourself, be honest to your customers, and always be an owner and never settle for less than the best. And if you do that, you're going to figure out growth.
Awesome. Have a great rest of your day, everybody.
Thanks so much for the time. Bye. Have a great evening.